All right, a disappointing June jobs report showing a still struggling private sector and slow economic growth. So, should the government cut corporate taxes to help hiring and boost growth? That is today's call of the wild debate. Joining us now, Grover Norquist, president of Americans for Tax Reform, and Democratic strategist Julian Epstein. Julian Epstein, study after study shows that you get the biggest bang for the GDP and jobs buck by cutting corporate taxes. What is the administration waiting for?
Well, I'm not sure the study after study shows that. I think that there is no question that in many cases tax cuts do help stimulus. I think in the Obama recovery plan, a third of the $700 billion was in fact tax cuts. But I think right now the kind of recession that we're looking at is a crisis that relates to consumer spending and to credit. It does not relate to production. So if productivity was the issue, I think you could make a stronger case for whether or not we should keep the Bush tax cuts in place. Right now we're looking at a situation where consumers aren't spending, they're very worried, they're very anxious, and simply keeping the Bush tax cuts in place, there's no real credible study, to answer your question, Larry, that shows that that will actually increase economic productivity. In fact, Moody's and CRS have said the impact of keeping the Bush tax cuts in place is minimal to negligible.
Grover, years ago, Gary and Aldana Robbins, former Treasury officials, estimated that if you speeded up depreciation, if you allowed business to write off their investments faster, you'd get $9.50 of GDP, extra GDP, for every dollar you cut taxes. I mean, I thought that study was the seminal work.
But not only that, but going to full expensing, speeding up depreciation to where when you buy $1 million worth of equipment, you expense it that year, not over 5, 10, or 20 years, would be tremendously helpful to the economy. It is, up until Obama, Reid, and Pelosi, the one tax cut that Democrats actually haven't opposed. Back when Reagan's tax cuts hit in '81, the Democrats actually supported the idea under Rostakowski of going to expensing. The new breed of Democrats want to spend money. They're not interested in economic growth. And the challenge is we need to go back and do exactly that, go to expensing. And our corporate rate is 35%. The European average is 25%. Stupider than Europe, more destructive than Europe's tax structure is not where the United States should be.
Julian, let's talk about the larger picture right now. Jamie Dimon gave $2,000 to Mark Kirk, who is the Republican in Illinois who's running for Barack Obama's old Senate seat. Obviously, he does something like this because he wants us to pick it up and talk about it. It's meant to send a message. Why the buyer's remorse in corporate America right now?
I don't think that there is. I think that actually there's a great deal of anxiety about the unemployment rate right now at looking at 9.5%. But I think if you looked at where we were a year ago, we were at negative 6% GDP growth. We're now at positive 4%. We were losing 800,000 jobs a month. We're now close to even. The stock market was at 6,000. The stock market's now at 10,000. As you pointed out, it's soaring today. I think the evidence that the Obama recovery plan, which was a mixture of tax...
This is somebody who gave $65,000 between 2006 and 2008 to Democratic campaigns. He switched sides. A lot of corporate America has. Why? I mean, they're feeling pinched. They're feeling like this isn't working. I mean, they supported him before. Now they're not. There's got to be a reason.
I think you could go all day long and find people that supported one party in corporate America that's switching over in this election. I think that's meaningless to just kind of cherry pick individuals like that. I think the important thing here is that you've seen a dramatic turnaround in the economy in the last year. Democrats have actually supported a mixture of tax cuts and stimulus, which is working. There is just no question that the business community, the Business Roundtable, for example, supported Obama on health care reform. I think there's a lot of support in the business community for what Obama is doing on other policy priorities, particularly on the recovery plan. So I think, the evidence is pretty strong that Obama has turned things around from where we were a year ago.
All right, Grover, let's go to the Business Roundtable, because Ivan Seidenberg of Verizon, Jeff Immelt of GE, Fred Smith of FedEx, and lots of others are saying that Team Obama doesn't like business, and business doesn't like Obama. And there are actually tax hikes coming on business rather than tax cuts. Now, is this true? Are we going to see this kind of standoff between business and Team Obama?
Oh, absolutely. The Business Roundtable was suckered in early on, as was the Chamber of Commerce, to support the stimulus package. Those guys are sickened now by the threats on taxing international trade, the taxes that they want to have on deferral. These are massive body blows. And the reason why business is not investing, this is not a consumer problem, business isn't investing in the United States, is because of the threats of Obama's tax increases promised for January, the threats of tax increases on energy, the tax increases that are coming on health care. I mean, the Obama administration has declared war on the American business community, large and small. Those higher marginal tax rates that kick in January on individuals, many small businesses pay individual rates. This is a body blow.
Julian,
Let's be clear about what we're talking about here. We're talking about the expiration. We're talking about the expiration of the Bush tax cuts, which I think overwhelmingly the evidence showed that the Bush tax cuts, even during the Bush years, didn't work. The Treasury Department under the Bush administration said that the Bush tax cuts didn't work. So it's the expiration of those tax cuts. On specific policies, and Grover didn't address this, the Business Roundtable and large segments of the business community have supported Obama on both stimulus plans.
But Julian,
Wall Street was squarely.
Let me finish the point here.
Wall Street was squarely behind the stimulus plan. The Business Roundtable was squarely behind health care reform. So Grover nor Larry responded to either of those two things. Neither of the two of Larry or Grover responded to the fact the economy has rebounded in the last year.
Turned tail. The Business Roundtable has essentially given us.
No, Larry. The Business Roundtable.
And that's
not what Ivan Seidenberg said.
You have to tell me why raising taxes on foreign earnings of corporations, raising taxes on capital gains, raising taxes on dividends, how any of that can possibly be construed as pro-growth. That's the part.
As you and I have discussed many times, Larry, I am not for raising taxes on capital gains. I think the carried interest. I think the carried interest issue is a totally separate issue. That's about whether secretaries should be taxed at the same rates as CEOs.
But in that bill, taxing investment partnership funds, Julian, let me put that on the table. Why tax venture capital? Why tax real estate? It just adds to the overall tax burden at a time when recovery is very, very sluggish.
I'm not sure the listeners are following exactly what you're suggesting. What I think you're talking about is the carried interest issue, which is a question about whether folks who are earning their money primarily from investments should be taxed at the same rate as everybody else. They're now getting taxed at the capital gains rate of 15%. That's an equity question. The second question is about whether the Bush tax cuts ought to expire. And again, as I said, and neither you or Grover have responded to this, this is a recession that we have right now because of consumer confidence and consumer spending. Simply extending the Bush tax cuts will do nothing about that.
Corporations aren't hiring because they don't know
but the Bush tax cuts aren't going to do anything about people hiring.
I'm going to let Grover respond.
Here's what's frightening. An apologist for the Clinton, Obama and Reid and Pelosi administration is saying that there's no problem here. The tax increases that are kicking in are not a problem. The business community isn't not investing. How do they ever expect to fix it with this kind of screw-up, this kind of unemployment, and this kind of lousy growth when they don't even understand what they did wrong?
Look at the sleight of the hand that Grover just makes, the tax increases. What we're doing here is we're letting the Bush tax cuts from 2001 expire.
If your tax bill is going up,
no evidence.
There are taxes in the health care bill.
Excuse me just a minute. There's no evidence that even during the Bush years, those tax cuts were productive for the economy, and no serious economists right now, including Moody's, CRS, or anyone else, is saying that the Bush tax cuts are the remedy that we need, given the nature of the economic problems that we have right now.
A very spirited discussion.
Nobody.
We appreciate it. Thank you so much to both of you for joining us.
Well, midterm elections should be a big wake-up call.